Yeah, so this is something I had planned on talking about, just not this way. But I think this is a good opportunity. So what I mean by that is, in my last video, skill sets versus move sets, it wasn't really in competition to say which one do I or which one is better than the other, but more so what would I prefer or what would I like to see done to the skill sets and move sets when implemented to the next game, because I can't imagine neither of the updated move sets or the skill sets just won't translate over to Monster Hunter 6. So we'll go ahead, jump right into this, see what we can. I'll share my thoughts. We'll go bit by bit. We'll see what he presents and we'll skip around whatnot.
So a couple of days ago, I put out a tweet that said shockproof is the worst decoration ever made. Now, initially, I made that tweet kind of like half jokingly because I had been playing multiplayer in Sunbreak. I've been grinding anomaly ranks, as you guys are most likely aware. And if you've played Monster Hunter for a significant amount of time, you're aware of the fact that when the hunt is over, you're usually just trying to mess around with the other hunters while you're waiting for that 60-second countdown timer to send you back to base. Now, usually, if you're someone with a switch axe or a great sword, you're trying to launch somebody into the air. And if you're someone with a gun lance, you'll be like, oh, let me see if I can nab somebody with a wyvern fire. And, you know, even though the tweet itself is kind of like made in a jokingly fashion, I can't help but say that it felt a little bit disappointing that, you know, I'm at the end of the hunt, I approach the other players, and the other players don't even move. Like, they don't even care. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get him with the wyvern fire, and zzz. And, you know, the wyvern fire goes off, and I hit them dead on, and nothing happens. That is because, for those of you that are not aware, because I understand that some people stopped playing Sunbreak when the anomaly grind kind of got started, what Shockproof does is it prevents any and all friendly fire from happening. So that means, you know, I don't know if bombs trigger Shockproof or not. I would assume you're also immune to bombs. Maybe not. I don't know. But like wyvern fire, Greatsword True Charge Slash, or even the Greatsword launch ability, the Switch Axe, even though I think they nerfed the Switch Axe where the launch ability stopped working at some point during this expansion. But basically anything that would trip the other player or would do anything to the other player, quite simply doesn't work. As a matter of fact, Shockproof works both ways. Not only it prevents the person using Shockproof from getting staggered from any friendly fire, it also prevents their own damaging moves from staggering any teammates. And I understand that a lot of you guys are going to look at that and you're going to be like, well, this is a good thing. That means that I don't have to worry about bothering my teammates. And I don't have to worry about teammates bothering me whenever I'm doing my special attacks, whenever I'm in the zone beating the crap out of the monster. And I understand that point of view. I really do. But something that I kind of tweeted out as a joke, the more I thought about it, the more it became something that I was like, you know what? I think that part of my brain saw that as kind of like a joke tweet because I just want to wyvern fire somebody at the end of a quest, and I think that would be fun. Another part of my brain is actually, you know, legitimately thinking about how this is a pretty bad decoration. And I wanted to make a video about it. But before we get into the actual topic that I want to discuss, I want to make a very quick disclaimer here, because usually whenever I put out an opinion on Monster Hunter, a lot of people look at me and they're like, oh my god, you're so out of touch, you have no idea what you're talking about. And
Hey, to back that up with what he just said, he is so right. Because I'm not a big name by any means. I'm not saying that like I am so popular people recognize me, but I went through, what was it? I think I posted a Reddit post, and one of my videos is the video. It was like monsters I don't want to see in the next Monster Hunter game. And it wasn't strictly to tear down at Monster Hunter to say like some of these are awful and disgusting or some of these suck. It was just more so like, you know, we already know that we have like a set, I guess you could say like a set cast list of monsters that are gonna make their entry in the next game. And if we wanted to throw a number and say 25 are going to make the cut, what 25 or what of the 25 would you not want to see, or whatever the case may be, based off of old games. Some people, it's like, oh, Volvodon, because I don't really want to worry about deodorant. All right, cool, whatever. For some people, it's like, oh, I don't care for. Some guy said Tigrex. He was like, Tigrex is really boring and basic and hasn't fought any different than it has when it first entered. Some people say Zynoger, because same old, overhyped electric wolf. Let's get another big lightning rep in the game. And it's like, okay, cool, you know. And it wasn't to say, you know, there was like a right answer. It was just to get people's thoughts, because I was going to essentially use it for a video. And there were some people in that same thread that were like, yeah, I don't know what's going on with you. That sounds like a bad idea. Good thing none of you guys are Monster Hunter devs. Every monster should be in the game. And I'm like, whoa, it's not like... I'm talking on a reality sense. I'm saying that in a realistic situation, we are bound to only see, and again, I'm throwing an example number of only 25 monsters make entry. I'm just saying, what in that 25 do you not expect to see? Like the 25 get revealed in the trailer, or not all 25, obviously. They only showed like really 10, but they would show you like the 10 or something, and then you'd be like, all right, cool. And then when you get the game, you play, you find the full 25, and you're like, all right, like I'm not mad about it. Like a Great Macau, Gaiadrome, or Velociprey, Gaiadrome, you know, Great Izuchi, Titiako, all the Raptors of old and new, you know, like if none of them really made it back, I'm not about to sit there all pissy and upset, you know. If Tigrex doesn't come back, I wouldn't care, in all honesty. There's certain monsters that I would be like, damn, I would like a variant of some sort of a Garen. I don't care if it's Mito Garen, it's a Rudu Garen, I think it is. I don't care if it's a Luna Garen. I don't care if it's Oda Garen or Odogaron or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, some of you are nasty with the way you see things. So, I mean, hey, if I get the same reaction on this, so be it. Everybody's entitled to what they think. But yeah, let's just continue. It is funny how he says this, though.
I'm completely willing to accept that. I very rarely will claim to be the absolute voice of reason. So the idea behind this video is to just kind of start a conversation and see where people land when it comes to the arguments that I'm about to make. I'm not saying this as in like, I want to see Monster Hunter changed forever to fit my view of the game. I just want to pose to you what is my view of the game, and I want to have the conversation. I want to have a civilized discussion about this. I'm not saying that I'm correct. I'm not saying that I'm incorrect. I'm just putting my opinion out there, and I want to have a discussion in the comment sections, and maybe I'll make a follow-up to this video. Maybe we'll even do a poll to see how people feel about this topic, but allow me to ramble on a little bit about something that I'm going to be calling the curse of convenience. So it shouldn't really be news for anyone that whenever we've got restocking back in Monster Hunter World, this was the first time that we got, a proper restocking. Because in GU, you can have restocking in the form of you can like go to an NPC in your ship and you can ask him, oh, deliver supplies for me, and you can even choose what the supplies are, and then they'll be randomly airdropped somewhere in the map and you can go get additional supplies. You'll also get additional supplies midway through a quest, but you don't really have access to the entirety of your inventory, like literally everything that you've ever gathered in the whole game. This was not a thing in previous entries of Monster Hunter. And, after playing through Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter World Iceborne, I realized that I actually didn't like restocking, something that seemed like it was going to be a pretty positive aspect all around, because, hey, my whole inventory is available to me inside the quest. I don't have to leave the quest to go get items. This is so incredibly convenient. I can just go up to one of these camps that we set up, and I have access to my whole inventory. This is friggin' fantastic. But after playing through the whole game, I realized this is actually a bad thing, because it made me a much sloppier hunter. I wouldn't really prepare that much for hunts because, I jump into the hunt and then I'll just go into camp and figure out, okay, what do I need, what I don't need, blah, blah, blah. Just select the things that I need. I'll be hunting a monster. Oh, this monster's beating the crap out of me. Let me go back to camp, get a bunch of potions, and go back to it. It just feels like you become sloppier and sloppier. Now, again, this is my opinion, and I know that a lot of people disagree with me when it comes to this. But for me, I find restocking to be a key aspect that kind of separates Monster Hunter from, say, a boss fight rush game, where you're just like rushing through, killing bosses. The thing that separates Monster Hunter from that genre of game is precisely the preparation aspect, the scavenging aspect. We're actually scavenging and foraging for materials and all of that stuff. And as a matter of fact, it created some pretty memorable moments for myself as a newcomer.
So real quick before he continues with that point. So my opinion on restocking, honestly, because it's not just restocking. He does go on to mention a few other things, but that doesn't happen until like much later. So I'm gonna skip ahead on what some of his experiences were, plus what some of the other, some of the comments stated. But it wasn't just restocking alone. It's kind of just talking about the fact that when you go back to camp, right? And also the fact that you have multiple camps, but essentially when you go back to camp, you go back to base, you got your handler there, you got the box, the delivery box or whatever, you got the canteen food stuff, right? You have the ability to eat if you forgot or if you want to re-eat later on. You can go back, obviously, fully gather everything. You can craft stuff right then and there. You can also change weapon movesets or change weapons. So if you're like playing with a hammer because it's like your first time and you're like, you know what, I just need to kill this monster, get my materials, go back to your main weapon, whatever that may be. And it's the fact that, like he said, there's not a need for proper preparation when going out into hunts, because it's like as if you kind of bring the gathering hub with you, not in some sense, that you can restock, change weapons, craft items, eat, and those sort of things, right? For me, at least, I think that's kind of what makes the journey into Monster Hunter a little easier to deal with, personally, for me. He thinks it's kind of something that takes away from it because preparation is key as a hunter. And he later goes on to talk about the immersion of being a hunter, and I'm going to skip it when I get to it. He talks about hot drinks and cold drinks, and, like animation, for example, differences, like whenever you're healing, right? In old Monster Hunter games, when you heal, you drink, you flex, and then you're free to move. And there was some commitment to the move because you're stuck in place. Versus World and Rise obviously take on the quality of life change of, hey, when you're drinking, you don't gotta flex, and you have movement while you still drink. You're not exactly sprinting per se, but you can walk and do like a slight little jog as you're consuming the health potion or whatever it is you're eating stuff. Like you can, like in Sunbreak, you could jump off a camp and throw a potion, like a chug a demon drug while you're dropping all the way down, and then if you're still drinking it, you'll fall, hit the ground, and keep drinking anyway. So it's like, I think it's just nice because it gives people a little more freedom of movement while they're in combat, especially if it's like, the only thing I think that sticks you to the ground, but the only thing that keeps you in place when you're trying to use it is like, obviously if you're trying to roast food, which I think they took that out of this game, at least specifically Sunbreak, because you can still roast food in Monster Hunter World if you want to make the different types of steaks. But then also, they take away the need to stay in one spot. Oh, like sharpening. Sharpening is another one that like you have to sit in one spot to use. But just about everything else, free access to movement. I think it's nice because new players can jump in not feeling like they have to be always so mindful of everything. Because for some people like me, there's not a sense of immersion that I have to have in the game. I know what I'm getting the game for, and it's Monster Hunter. And he goes on to mention, like, is this a boss rush game or whatever? I would say that in truth, in the beginning of the game, when you're exploring Monster Hunter for the first time and you're learning to like gather materials, learn what the or gathering like herbs and honey and things like that, gathering the environmental materials and then grabbing materials from the monsters, and then you're learning what it is to craft and forge and upgrade things, and getting gear for your palico, getting gear for yourself, and essentially the whole 9 yards of what makes Monster Hunter, right? When it comes into that, is something it's cool, and I already like that, and that's part of the immersion of like building and crafting and prepping for the next fight, but personally for me, restocking I don't think hurts anything. I think if you want to prepare, you can prepare. There is nothing that's stopping you. Like he said, it just made him sloppy because he got comfortable with it, which is totally fine if that's how you truthfully feel. But for me at least, I was always working to improve regardless. So I would, grab a demon drug, I'd grab a defense, the defense drink, and then, just go into the fight, chug it, head into battle. I knew if I was fighting Tiastra in a hot spot, like the volcano and others recess, I would bring a cool drink, and vice versa. If I'm fighting something in a cold spot, Hoarfrost Reach, I'm bringing a hot drink, which he even goes on to mention it. I'll see if I could try to find it. He even goes on to mention something about, like the immersion breaks when you're
in that hunt. I was just run away.
Let me see. It mentioned like,
why do you think that hunts have a 50-minute time limit?
Breaks is like not like drinking a cold bottle of water really changes anything, but it's still. Let's see if I can find it.
But to me, you're actually hunting. It's not a boss fight.
I'll put this up in the meantime.
With a set number of potions and just throwing yourself at the monster till the monster dies.
Oops.
You're fighting it. In the old games, before we're up maybe a little bit later in the video, monster, and because it'd be so frustrating that a paintball would run out and the location of the monster in case you lose track of it, so you'd actually. I personally miss. It's the preparation aspect, the scavenging aspect. Fighting the monster is in a way why it is called Monster Hunter. It's you to do hunting related things which are beyond just being super effective at your weapon. It involves knowledge.
So that's another thing. This is what I was saying earlier, is that hunting isn't just hunting and then fighting the monster. Hunting is essentially like opening up the doors to getting materials and exploring the world and getting comfortable with where you're going. So if you fight monster A, the monster A will move from area 1, but when you knock it out a decent amount of health, it's going to go to area 3, right? And then already how to navigate and get to that point. As well, it involves tracking and using clues to get comfortable knowing the monster, building up the information on the monster for your hunting book, and that sort of thing. So what he was going into is the means of hunting isn't just fighting the monster. It's a means of gathering info and doing hunting related activities to then be able to hunt the monster down. I get that totally, and that's what I said. I think in the beginning of the game, I think that's what it is. I think, and because that's how it is. You're zero, you're flat out, and you have nothing to your name. All you got is a basic weapon and some basic gear, and you have to build everything as you go. Like a story game that you can customize your character in, or an MMORPG, like there's any of those games really. You have nothing to start, and then you build up from the journey itself and gather things and learn new tricks and blah 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 blah, and then you apply that to the next activity you're involved in, the next hunt, the next fight, the next boss battle, the next whatever. And what he was saying is that besides restocking, Monster Hunter is slowly losing what makes it Monster Hunter. And I wish I had timestamps specifically to certain points that he presents, but this is like a 40-minute video. I don't want to make a 40-minute plus video on what he says, so we're just going to bounce around here a little bit. It's a little unprofessional, but I don't know. This video just came out yesterday, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to talk about it, so, see how it goes. But yeah.
Of the map, it involves knowledge of where the monster would go in case you would lose the paintball, and you could see, oh, but it's limping, so it's going to go back to its nest, and I know that the nest is in this location, so I can go there. All of that additional knowledge is something that I think brings charm and immersion to the game. I find these things to be core aspects of the hunt. Now, I got a lot of pushback from stating these opinions before. Apparently, a lot of people don't find these types of activities fun. They don't think it's fun to have to scavenge for materials. A lot of people don't even think it's fun to gather materials, which is why they came up with things like the Steamworks and you could always send Palicos to go pick up materials for you. There's always been like a farm type feature. But I feel like they've really ramped those up to an extent where you're not really managing a farm. You're just getting materials for free. That's basically kind of how it goes. I think that farms are a good thing. Something like the Argosy in Rise of Sunbreak. I think that is a good thing because it makes gathering a little bit more tolerable. But I like there to always be an aspect where you should be gathering a little bit between hunts at least to kind of supplement the rest of your materials. But, like I was saying, I got pushback from saying these things and the fact that I didn't like restocking and all of this stuff because it's apparently too inconvenient. Which is why the title of this video is kind of like the curse of convenience, because there are things that we are losing along the way. And I think that if you watch through this all the way, you're going to be surprised at all of the points that I'm going to be making. Or maybe you won't, who knows. Let me know in the comment section and let's have a conversation about it.
People ask me all the time, Chris, if you could only take...
Stupid ad, but I'm gonna just... Oh, come on. I'm gonna just let it continue. But yeah, he does go on to present a few different points, so we'll dig into some of those. I'm gonna see if it's already something I mentioned, I'm just gonna skip it. But if it's not, we'll listen.
Now, another announcement that caught me very much off guard was when they said, I believe that this was before the release of Rise, we're removing hot and cold drinks from the game.
Alright, so yeah, that was the first thing he went up and said. This is where I think that particular clip comes from. I'm kind of curious if I can see or recognize a thing from it. But yeah, this was the sense of the immersion itself that you would be involved in it. That, okay, I'm going in a cold area. What is it I need? First thing I need is a hot drink, right? Oh, going into a hot area. What's the first thing I need? I need a cold drink. And what he goes on to state is that a lot of people were actually happy about it because more or less it never really mattered all that much. Somebody in the comments of this same video has stated that, in all truth, if you were really comfortable with Monster Hunter, if you were really comfortable fighting in those areas and you knew what you were fighting and could make the fight last very short, hot and cold wasn't necessary. It's necessary at first because you don't really understand what you're getting involved in, so you got to be mindful of your surroundings. But later on, I mean, I've done it now, especially when you can augment later on, right? When you can augment your gear for, say, like in World and in Sunbreak, right? You have the ability to like augment your gear to where every time you hit, you get a little bit of a health drain, and then you can improve that health drain. So literally every time I swing my weapon, I'm getting a little bit of health. But then if I'm comboing with my weapon, say dual blades or long sword or something of the sword or bow, now I'm comboing so much, I'm just fully healing myself without the need to have to drink my own potions. So I save on potions and I save on hot drinks and cold drinks because my weapon covers for me. It's a little like vampire kind of thing, which there are vampire inspired builds in Monster Hunter for that. I would believe for that exact reason, to reduce how many things you would have to consume in a fight, because consuming, whether or not you're standing still, whether or not you're moving, is commitment, because the monster is free to just, any given moment, and you want to reduce the ability to get smacked in one of those moments. So I think it's a good point. That I think it's good that hot and cold drinks are gone, because the immersion sense is only there for 5 seconds once you drink it. Then you go on for 5-6 minutes, you hunt, you realize your stamina's dropping, you realize you're losing a little bit of health here and there, and you're like, oh wait, gotta re-drink, boom, and then you're back in the fight. It's cool for those little moments, maybe, again, at the very beginning of the game when you're getting used to it. Later on, I really don't care. It really doesn't. For me, it's an end game versus beginning game, but we'll go on for later on.
When the developers announced that they were removing hot and cold drinks, a majority of the player base was happy about it. They were like, yeah, we don't have to do hot and cold drinks. I even remember talking at length with Gaijin Hunter about this because he was one of the people that was happy. I think since then I kind of like turned him around a little bit on this subject, but I'm not 100% sure what his stance on it is nowadays. But, you know, a lot of people rejoiced. They were like, yeah, way more convenient. I don't have to worry about hot and cold drinks. Now, these hot and cold drinks would basically provide you with a buff, which means it's not just about drinking a potion once and then you're done. You have to, like, reapply it whenever the buff effect runs out. Now, the developers themselves explained that they would sometimes forget to pack the potions in previous games, which would require them to then exit the quest and relaunch the quest. We're talking old games before Monster Hunter World. However, nowadays, you have restocking, which is the topic we were talking about earlier. So if you forget to pack the potions, you could just go to the tent and get them from your inventory, which is all in the tent. Like the whole of your inventory, every single item that you've ever gathered in the game is available to you, you know, right there in your tent. So to me, this point is a little bit moot. Like the fact that, oh, well, sometimes we'd forget the potions. It was annoying. Well, you put a mechanic in the game that basically makes this not being a problem. But apparently a majority of the community also thought that restocking was not convenient. It's an inconvenient thing to have to, not restocking, that hot and cold potions were not convenient. It's an inconvenient thing to have to monitor a buff. This actually worked differently for cold. Like if you're in a cold area, you would take stamina damage instead of taking health damage. So, you know, there was a difference there. I guess that probably with the way things work in Sunbreak, it would actually be the freezing effect on your wire bugs. I think that would make the most sense. But, you know, an inconvenience to have you just drink a potion every now and then. Now, you might be wondering, well, Rurikhan, why do you care about this? And the reason is because, again, it's one of those things that we're sacrificing in terms of convenience, which is one of the things that I would consider to be a core aspect of Monster Hunter, because it adds immersion. It's like, oh, my hunter is in a hot area. I need to drink a cold drink to make up for the fact that I'm in this hot area. It adds immersion. It makes me feel like I'm a part of the world, like I can't just walk into a place that's surrounded by burning lava. I know it still doesn't make a lot of sense that, oh, but if you just have like an ice cold drink of water, you can walk into it. But, you know, it adds another element to it that makes it.
So that right there, that is the exact reason why I don't personally care about the change to hot and cold drink. Because, like he said, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to just have a cold cup of water, you know, and then boom, you can fight on the sun, basically. Like that's what I think. It's not like an inconvenience in my head. I think it's like, all right, it's added to the game for a purpose. There's a reason they implemented the ability to drink hot and cold drinks, and it's important to something because it's part of that preparation and being ready for the fight you're going to be involved in. So I get that, I respect it. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't care about it all the same, because it's just that. It's a little reminder of, hey, your health is draining a little bit. You might want to drink a cold drink. Hey, your stamina's going down. You might want to drink a hot drink. And then you go right back into the fight. That little 10-second, not even 10 seconds, that little 5-second moment of consuming whatever it is you're consuming and then going on to the fight means so little to me. Which is why, and you know, I can go on with it. And also, I was thinking about this in my car yesterday when, you know, I was listening to this video. I was like, also, like, your hunter is also capable of insanely massive feats. If you think about all the games from past to now, right? And obviously, you're not the same hunter every single time. You're a different type of hunter in different things, right? For some of the games like 1 and 2 and whatnot, you're a Generation's first monster, you or Monster Hunter, you were the Neanderthal addition to it all, But then in things like 3, you hunt underwater. 4, you get new weapons and verticality. You start fighting then rocket-powered monsters like Valstrax. You fight a monster that is able to use the old relics and buildings and stuff to make a ginormous monster that'll fight you. If we're talking about a tall Ka and Generations Ultimate, you get to fight a newborn dragon. You fight a living mountain. You fight a mountain that was rupturing like the entire vibrations of like Astera itself, and causing a shift of monsters, including the elder dragon of the game, right? You then go on to the next game and you proceed to fight 2 monsters that cause every monster within like a 500-mile radius to go absolutely batshit crazy. And then you proceed to then fight the same set of monsters who consume the other monster. And then you also later in the next DLC fight what seems like a weird rogue knight of a dragon, and then proceed to learn that you end up fighting the equivalent of the super demon of hell as a monster. I will tell you in such an honest way, I think the last thing I would be concerned with as a hunter is, damn, did I drink though? And I'm like, who cares? like did I eat before the hunt? Yeah, you get the max health, the max stamina, plus you get some bonuses like Moxie or Heroics or Slugger or whatever you're looking for. But then for something like that, I don't really care. And that's what I said, because it doesn't make sense. You drink for 5 seconds just to get the buff and then go back in the fight and then forget about it for the next 10 minutes and then, I gotta get it again. I don't care personally. But let me jump around here a little bit. Hold on.
A little bit more immersive to me. But again, it was another feature. Fire area, suddenly the potion, the flexi, a bad skill. Like I said at the start, most people will argue it isn't. Most of you even argued instantly it's a fantastic skill. It's one of the best skills in the game. Because, it makes things be more efficient. You can be more efficient. You can just be on top of the monster. You get more uptime. You can increase your DPS output, do all of these things. This skill effectively, for starters, makes Brace useless, which is another skill that's in the game. But that's not really saying much. There are plenty of skills that are in the game that nobody really uses because they're useless skills. And somebody's going to say, but Rurikhan, if I get like level 3 Brace, I can withstand attack X from monster Y. And it's like, and does anybody actually use it? Does anybody actually use Brace?
For quick context, what Shockproof is it allows you as the hunter to not get hit by anything your teammate does, which makes flinch free, which I guess you could call the OG shock absorber or shockproof, useless. So, for example, my friends and I, we joke about it, semi-not joke about it all the time, where when we're in the hunt, for example, like, I'll use longsword, and I cut the tail, we broke the wings, now it's just got to kill the monster, so we're hitting the head, right? But I have a buddy who's a lance player who's trying to hit the head, and it's like, hey, I need room to breathe. Or we have a hammer player or a greatsword player or a gun lance person. But the gun lance person just charged their wyvern fire, so we're all about to get blasted away. And the hammer person is doing their combo. Part of their combo consists of the upswing, and there was all these little things that you could get hit by, and you could never fully get a true combo out. And the only people who ever got lucky with their stuff was like charge blades and switch axes, and certain people that just or long sword spirit combos, give you the ability to not have iframes but hyper armor, I guess, but to your friend's moves, not to the monster itself. And it was things like that used to piss people off, because nobody wants to have to slot in a level 1 decoration. It was easy to slot in by all means, but if you're going for meta or a build you really prefer, you're not thinking about flinch free, because the key parts of the game that has been lost in some way, or it's lost depending on what you're fighting, and it depends on the game you're looking at. positioning is important. And so, for example, certain monsters, positioning kind of doesn't matter. Like, if you're fighting, I don't know, like a great Jagras, the only two spots that you have to hit it on is, like, its head and stomach. And even then, the stomach is the only thing you can hit if it chooses to consume the ground or a monster in it. Otherwise, the only thing that matters is going to be its head. Now, you could hit everywhere and still get really good damage off and whatnot, but, you know, it's like the same thing with Raytheon. Raytheons are rather easy. Like, I need to know a new weapon monster, and very medium level to deal with, as opposed to Rathalos. And so for Raytheon, it's a perfect monster with 3 different things you can worry about hitting: head, wings, tail. Right? You break the tail, can't hurt you as much. Hit the wings, won't fly as much. Break the head, I don't know, rare materials, it won't breathe fire. Right? And so key positioning tells you long swords to the tail, hammers and gun lances and great swords to the head, but heavy bow guns and all that stuff to the wings. And then there's always that weird moment in between of like, all right, well, wings and tail and head are all broken and or cut off. What else do we hit? 90% of the time you're going to go to the head. So shockproof is a way now to just fix that problem in Sun and Break of like, well, damn, you guys got everything else, and you want to do most optimal damage, which means you have to go to the head. So yes, you're just gonna need this decoration, and hey, it helps you out, you know. So I don't know, it's a weird one to say. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but I personally, I get so flinch free is part of the sense of immersion in the game. It's to make you be prepared for the fact that you can't just recklessly bonk and smack and slash the monster around. You got to be careful about how you approach certain tasks. Now, there are people out there who don't care about that. They're not gonna care. I've made it my mission to be more aware of that in hunting. So like, I will go straight to the tail and try to cut it off, and do my damnedest, you know, because if it's especially a 4-player, I'm doing a 4-player, like, I'm trying to do 1-player damage on a 4-player damage health of a tail, and you know, it can take a little while, but that is essentially, that's just what happens, right? Sometimes you end up not always, like, maybe the monster gets knocked down, you're a little too far away, the only thing you can get to right now is the head. Like, stuff happens, you know. But I personally think flinch free just, it doesn't need to be in the game because it's such a weird way to go about it, you know. Like, I don't know if you can even augment for it. You probably could. It's just not something I care about. I don't think it has a good reason to be in the game. I get why it's in the game, but this is one I would call bad. I don't think it's a good mechanic. Being aware of the monster, again, maybe at the beginning for key positioning and understanding is so important, but later on when you get comfortable fighting said monsters, you're not worried as much because at the end of the day, you're still just going to go for the head. You'll probably break a tail and a wing along the way if you're a solo player. And if you're with a team, if you guys are really good and have not maxed out but like pretty optimal gear, you're going to cut off all the other stuff anyways, and you're going to just go right back to hitting the head. So what difference does it make is how I see it. But we'll continue from here. Let's see what we got.
3. I can see some people using maybe Tremor 3, maybe even Windproof in certain
Let's
fights.
skip around real quick.
As I was saying, tripping another player is inconvenient and inefficient. Getting blasted by Wyvern Fire is inconvenient.
Yeah, like I said.
Inefficient, very much the same way as getting thrown into the air by a hammer.
Yeah, see, exactly.
If your attacks are interrupted, there's a DPS loss. You are losing your uptime.
Oh, so let me skip this, right? So he was also saying that one of the bigger concerns for some of the people playing the game is you're always worried about getting your damage off in like quick succession and whatnot. And so in games like MMOs, right? Think of, I don't know, World of Warcraft, Blade and Soul, Final Fantasy 14. There's a means to always have to get your damage up as much as possible. So you have skills you can execute, like in 14, I play a Dragoon. I say play, but I haven't played in a while. But basically, like, you know I have positionals. This move is great to hit from the side, but the next move I need to follow up from the back. The next one I can do from any direction, but then I follow up with the next combo hit from the side, the other one on the other side. There's different positions to play depending on the DPS or pugilist or, the different classes in 14 or any other MMO. And there's a means of getting you have to keep your damage up because at the end of the day, you're trying to kill this thing, right? You don't want to wait, slow down, and break the pace of the fight. You're trying to constantly upkeep your damage. So without flinch free, you lose out on that. I think the other day I was trying to record. So the other day when I recorded for the skill sets versus movesets, I was hunting like a Rajang or something. I was trying to hunt an anomaly something that I needed. And I was just going to record that as background footage. And what was funny to me was that in the process of hunting, I didn't put in flinch free. I was making a build off of something from the meta builds, but I was trying to keep it to what I had available because I didn't have all the stuff that the decorations needed. So I made whatever, and I didn't put in flinch free because I didn't need it. At least I thought. And then in the middle of my hunt, while I'm trying to record, I'm getting bonked and smacked and clapped by the dual blades player, the heavy bowgun keeps shooting me in the back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, can I have a moment to breathe? And there are instances like that where I'm like, yeah, you just need flinch free to kind of help it out. But also, if it's only a level 1 decoration or shockproof, right? It's only a level 1 decoration that you really need. If it's level 1, it means it doesn't matter all that much. It's like, it's whatever. Just put it on, and you don't even really think about it. So just get rid of it. That way my DPS does get to stay up as much as possible. Because also the other means of getting your DPS up as much as possible is on the basis of like how well of you as a hunter perform. Are you a longsword player that constantly has your spirit gauge up to max level or can get it up there rather quickly? Are you a charge blade player that gets their files, shield, and sword up because then that's most optimal damage you can get? Are you a lance player who gets the counter guard off and you proceed to have the red charge on your lance, this is specifically the Sunbreak. I don't know how it is in Iceborne. Are you a great sword player that has max focus and can get to level 3 true charge slash relatively quickly, or use a strong arm stance to get it? Like, there are things to optimize on your damage and ways to get there, and flinch free or not having flinch free kind of breaks that because you're like, damn, I'm just getting smacked and I can't do what I'm supposed to do. So for me, take it out. I don't care, that's me.
All of this. And I know that a lot of people are probably going to be thinking, well, Rurikhan, I've seen a lot of your live streams. You've just never been on the receiving end of a wyvern fire. You don't know how frustrating it is. And the actual truth is I have been. It's very rare because there's not a whole lot of Gunlance players out there. But when it happens, I actually find it to be really fun. As a matter of fact, I think that there's a degree of skill to how you do wyvern fires in order to be able to wyvern fire safely in front of other players without knocking them down. Sometimes, in my case, if you actually watch through my live streams, you'll notice that sometimes, because somebody is close to me, you'll see me aim the wyvern fire up because I know the approximate hitbox at which the wyvern fire is going to hit, and I know.
A quick side note, look at how chaotic this whole thing is, bro. Chaotic, Gormagala, and Bloodbath. Not Bloodbath, Diablo. So that is what it's basically based off of. Apex, Diablo stuff. It's just, and again, man, this isn't Sunbreak, an arena quest. This is probably an anomaly investigation of some sort, I imagine. Or just a really crazy event quest. But yeah, I have a buddy. His name is Cam, to keep it short, and he does the gun lance, and he's the one I was mentioning earlier where we hunt and he uses the gun lance, and sometimes he's shot me while I'm in the middle of combo, whatever. I'm like, in the moment of those things, I don't get mad. I'm not sitting there like, oh my god, like I do, and they do create funny moments. I think I had a moment where I was playing the longsword and I was getting the EI slash off or something like that. I was then going to go into the the helm slash. I was going to go into the helm slash. I jump. Alright, I poke the monster. I jump up in the air. And as I'm going down, this is something I hated in World and Iceborne and Rise and Sunbreak. Whether or not you connect the move doesn't matter if you don't touch the ground. If you don't touch the ground but the hit's connected, the hits never did then connect. And it would just take the hit away from you. So when I was going, I jump up in the air, I'm coming down with the helm slash, shink, I hit the monster, at least I believe so. And before I hit the ground, my buddy Cam already had his Wyvern Fire charged, and he goes, "I'm so sorry," and I get blasted away. Now, granted, you only land like 5-6 feet away. It's not the worst thing in the world, but that is loss on damage. But it was just kind of funny because I'm like, that's not often that happens. I've gotten hit by it while I'm on the ground, but like I expected because of where I'm hitting. Like, I'm not mad at this moment. But this one, I was like trying to prepare myself for it, and I got caught by it still, and that was just funny. I couldn't even be bothered to be mad about it. And it's kind of nice when those moments get created, you know. And I'm so sorry. I said I wasn't gonna make this like longer than 40 minutes, but I forget how long he talks about the same thing. So I definitely should have thought about that, but it's okay. We'll bounce around more a little here.
How to turn it in a way that is not going.
And it's just again, be mindful of where you
channel.
shoot.
Now I was very happy to see that they still have a component of friendly fire. I think that this is something that is, and I know that sometimes it leads to griefing, sure, but it's like the amount of times this actually leads to griefing is so small in my experience. It's such a small minority of times that this leads to griefing, that the fun aspect that you get to have when you're playing with your friends and, you know, Wyvern Fire happens at the worst possible time, it's just fun. It's just having fun with your friends. I don't understand this mentality. It's like, no, it's inconvenient, it's inefficient, and it affects my DPS output, and therefore I don't want it. How about the tactical skill of positioning yourself in an appropriate way? Hammers go to the head. Longswords go to the tail. How about that? Gun lances go wherever because we have true damage. Doesn't really matter. Position yourself in a way that you're not in anybody else's way, right? I feel like this is a conversation that we need to have because this is something that effectively is going to be what defines the next Monster Hunter. I want to remind everybody of what I said at the start of this video. I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just making my argument, and I'm willing to listen to your argument in the comment section.
And so something he mentions, right, when he says when he was doing like the imitation of like the one hunter who's like, oh, it's inefficient, it takes away from my damage, and it downplays my experience, or, you know, whatever he had just said, right? And he says, well, why don't you just learn positioning? And that is true. I will have to agree with that part of the statement. Learn positioning. Be mindful of your surroundings. Be mindful of how you're attacking the monster. That's kind of the whole point of it. If it's got 3 points of true damage area that you can cover, head, wings, tail, or in some cases it's head, legs, tail, depending on what you're fighting. Like Anjanath doesn't have wings, but you can break its legs, and it'll fall more quick. It'll fall quicker when you break its legs more often, and it'll stay on the ground longer than you would if you, like, say, smacked it into a wall with like Clutch Claw, or if you do the puppet spider to the wall, you know, things like that, right? Like, it'll stay on the ground longer if you just broke its legs, I believe is the case, right? And key positioning is key. Again, a lot of that is important when you first start the game. Later on, though, it's important for like a first couple minutes in the hunt, because once you break what you need and whatnot, you just go straight to the head. I think both points can be accepted in this case. I don't think flinch free is like the worst thing in the world, but I'm not a fan of it personally, because it is annoying to have to think just slot in flinch free, because at first it's easy to say that when obviously you're not the one being affected by it. I am said person, you know. I've definitely told my friends, just slot it in, it's only one decoration. But why should somebody have to go through the same trouble, or why should somebody have to go through the trouble of slotting in a skill if people were just more mindful about how they proceed to fight? But at the same time, if said skill didn't exist, then said problem wouldn't exist either. So they presented a problem, right? There's two different solutions: either put in flinch free, or just be mindful of where you're hitting. But if you're not hitting always for optimal damage, I'm not trying to hunt for 15, 20 minutes. I'm trying to make these hunts 10 or less, you know? So, I mean, it kind of just depends on which side of the coin you want to look at it, you know, which side of the issue. I'm on the side of, I get why it's implemented, and it's a cool thing for the sake of immersion, but because I don't care about immersion that much, and I love just fighting. For me, it's Monster Fighter, if I want to look at it that way. I don't mind gathering and all that stuff, but it is Monster Fighter for me. And because of that, I don't care for flinch free. Just take it out, let me go on about my own thing. So I get where he's coming from. I don't think it's a dumb position. I don't think mine is any better of a position. It's just you want it or you don't want it, and here's why. So I'll go on.
I feel like I've had a lot of fun and memorable moments that were done because remove the mechanic altogether from the game. Is that what we're doing? Is that the way?
Oh yeah, let me go back to this one.
I mean, if effectively what we're doing is just removing friendly fire, then let's just remove the mechanic altogether from the game. Is that what we're doing? Is that the way that... You know what I'm saying? It's just like there are things that I feel should be preserved that are fun in the game. And this goes beyond friendly fire. Like I talked about, restocking, hot and cold drinks, and we'll get into a couple more here. Now, during a recent live stream, I was chit-chatting while I was hunting. I'm always talking about random stuff, and this time we're talking about my current gunlance build. And I realized that I was praising a skill that I got from the Amat's Warmer set, which is Heaven Sent. Now, for those of you that don't know what Heaven Sent does, maybe because you haven't been playing the game for a while, or maybe you're new, I'm going to read you the description. The effect is lost when you are knocked back or strayed too far away from the monster. Now, at level 1, what the skill does, and this is a 3-level skill, decreases damage once and reduces stamina consumption while active. Performing a switch skill swap will recover sharpness and reload ammo. So every time that you do a switch skill swap when this thing is active, it'll sharpen your weapon. And it will also fully reload your weapon if it's a bowgun or, in my case, a gun lance. It even reloads the wyvern stake, which I was like, wow, okay. Then, at level 3, also nullifies stamina and sharpness consumption. So at level 3, once this skill triggers, sharpness as a skill effectively ceases to exist. Performing a switch skill swap removes or reduces status ailments. Also, gets rid of status ailments. So effectively, if I am able to activate this skill, which just consists of being in combat with the monster without you getting hit for a little while, so there is a certain level of skill involved there, I can ignore the sharpness mechanic in the game. And you might be like, well, okay, but, how often have you been able to activate the skill since you've gotten it? And the reality is, since I started using this skill, I've never sharpened my weapon again.
Here's a quick note for console players or just anybody that has yet to do it. Heaven Sent, I don't know if he said it, but Heaven Sent is part of an armor set that comes from the final monster. Technically, was supposed to be the final monster introduced to Sunbreak. And if you don't know, spoilers, it's Amatsu, which was already revealed a while back and it's been out in the whole 9 yards. With that being said, it's the same as the Fatalis dilemma, right? When Fatalis came out in Iceborne, naturally there was a power creep coming up, right? It would go on to going to the Grinding Lands and maybe Rock to Ruin and Nurgi or Brachydios or something, or whatever the case was in base game. But then as you progress forward with some of the title updates, we got some Silver Rathos, Silver Rathos was part of the base game. I lied to you, but Kolve came back, Safi was introduced, Rage and Brachy, Frostfang Barioth, Furious Rajang, and then you would then have Master Rank Kolve, and then you would have Elitron, and then you would have Fatalis. I think that was like all the title update like things that came out. And the game had a natural power creep from all those things, where to the closer to the end of the game before Elytron, it was just straight up like, oh yeah, here's Safi, Colve, and Raging Brachy gear to use. And then because of Elytron using Elemental type, by the way, use Safi and Silver Rathalos gear. Okay. And then once you beat that, it's like, okay, now you don't have to, but using Elytron would help because it has high defense and has a lot of health skills, resentment, health boost, resentment, a couple other things and whatnot. Okay, fine. A lot of people adopted using mostly Elytron sets on top of still Safi and Colve, right? And then Fatalis comes out. You then beat Fatalis. And could you guess what every build, whether comfort or whether it was meta, became? It was 90% of the time 4 pieces of like Fatalis and maybe some other gear. When I looked at the longsword build, because I was going to go back to using a longsword for a little bit in World and Iceborne, the first thing I saw for a build was Frostfang Barioth helmet, and then everything else was Fatalis, either a alpha or beta. And I was like, oh, okay, you got a charge blade, almost the exact same thing. I was going on to these other weapons, and I was looking at the bow too. I was going to use the bow, and I was like, damn, I mean, it really is just that. But it is the final monster in the game. You are essentially fighting the end-all, be-all of that game. Amatsu is the end-all, be-all of Sunbreak, give or take Primordial Malzeno having now been released. But with if you were to exclude it, it was the end-all, be-all. So having an end-game super-level skill is a convenience to those that, all, for one, worked and earned it, but two, you shouldn't have to worry about sharpening and whatnot or having to do. Now it's just a means of how well can you hunt efficiently, and not everybody's meant to be a speedrunner, but it does speed things up, and so for him, I don't know if he was complaining about it per se, but it was more so like it ignores the mechanic of needing to sharpen. But I mean, it is if we're ranking monsters on a level of 1 through 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being like the best of the best, Amatsu would essentially be the 5 on the top of that 5. He's on top of the pyramid. That's the whole point of him. He was the final title update Elder Dragon for that specific reason. In the same sense that Fatalis was also a level 5 monster, because at the end of the day, you are fighting the end-all be-all dragon that consumed and destroyed everything. So I think it's silly to be upset about it. I don't know if he's truly upset. I'll have to listen more. Let me see.
I mean, maybe a couple of times when the monster is switching zones, so I'm not in combat and, the skill goes away. And I'm like, oh, I might as well sharpen a little bit. But, like, in combat, never sharpen again. Ever. Like, whenever the skill triggers, I'll switch skill swap once or twice. Full sharpness. And then, because the skill is triggered, I'm, sharpness doesn't exist. I can just do whatever the hell I want. So this basically allows me to remove the sharpness mechanic, which is something that I said earlier as a joke. And the worst part is I found myself celebrating this. Isn't this a weird state of affairs where I was like, oh man, sharpening is so inconvenient. I put this skill on, don't ever have to do it again. And I understand that this is something that you could already do to an extent, like for instance in Monster Hunter World with the Master's Touch skill, and even in Rise Sunbreak with Master's Touch, if you build right, you can also effectively kind of ignore sharpness. With Protective Polish, you still have to sharpen. You can get some things that kind of mitigate the effects of you doing the sharpness thing, but removing it completely and me celebrating it was a weird thing.
Also, another note for what he's saying right there. Again, with what I just said, it is like a level 5 tier monster, right? It's the pinnacle of like all the monsters you've gotten to up until this point via Rise and Sunbreak. Somebody said in the comments of this video when I read it, when I was going through it yesterday, somebody had said something like, it was a means of time, right? There is a 50-minute timer to gather and get things on blah 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 blah, or the monster's giving you trouble. But also, not everybody has that window of opportunity to play for 5-6 hours at a time, where that 50-minute timer is crucial for those things. Some people can't afford to deal with all that right now. Especially like for me, when I go to college and I go to work at the same time, trying to hang out with friends, and I have my own life going on, it's kind of hard to sit there for multiple hours at a time trying to play when I got assignments and this and that, and I'm just tired, and you're not thinking like, damn, like how many inconveniences do I really or do I have? Like, oh Lord, like at the end of the, especially at the end of the game, you essentially are becoming the hunter, right? You're the hero of the story. I think you can afford to have a few conveniences that help you smooth things out, because you're already there. You're at the end of it all. You could quite literally, if you want to think about it, right? If you want to think about it in a lore story sense, once you beat Amatsu and then you proceed to follow up and beat Primordial Malzeno, you can drop the game. If you really wanted to, you've done it all. You have the best skills made available to you. Make vampire builds. You can never have to sharpen again. You don't have to worry about consuming anything. You are the ultimate hunter. And you can put the game down, because the next game is going to put you back at level 0 and you got to do all that again. So for me, I get where Rurikhan is coming from. I don't think it's a bad thing, because like you said, he praised the mechanic because sharpening is somewhat of an inconvenience, and it is. It's a damage modifier you have to keep re-upping. Is essentially all it is. And if you want to talk about immersion in a realistic sense, your weapons do get more dull after more usage, and you are constantly fighting a monster. So it's nice to have a whetstone, sharpen it up, make sure it's in its prime again, and then go back into the fight. But it is also just a damage modifier you're coming up with. Now, if this is a skill at the beginning of the game, I think that would hurt a lot of things, because that would make players a bit more sloppy, because then they would get too used to the fact that they can reset it every single time. But you're at the end of the game. You can see here, he's fighting like a risen monster. He's fighting a risen monster, and on top of that, is fighting this with people who are also probably rocking max gear and all that stuff. He's at the end of it all. For him, it shouldn't matter as much as I would look at it. Versus me on console, I'd be like, man, I wish I had something like that. When I play Switch checks and I have to use protective polish and speed sharpening because I gotta go back in the fight. It's nice to have those skills. He's already at the end of the game. He could honestly drop the game and call it a day. He's done just about everything there is to do, more or less. I can't determine that for him, but in terms of if you're thinking about main progression or main story progression, like if it was like 14, he's done it. He's just doing extra stuff now to be nice and get involved in his community, which is a great thing. I'm not bashing that. I'm just saying in terms of lore wise and whatnot, he's done it all. He's gotten it. He's gotten everything he could need. So I'm gonna let him finish out with whatever he had to say on this thing.
I think that the overabundance of convenience that we've got, that we basically call quality of life, is something that is becoming subtractive of the core fundamentals of Monster Hunter. Now, another realization that I had during this live stream that I was doing, this was a community live stream. You can find it in the channel. It says Community Hunts, because I just wanted to hang out with you guys, level a little bit of anomaly rank, and people are always asking me, Rurikhan, you gonna hunt with your viewers? And I was like, you know what, anomaly research ranking is a good time to do that. You got a bunch of levels, play with people, make the grind a little bit more bearable. It was a tremendously fun stream, had an absolute blast. But during this stream, there was another thing that I realized. And that was that a majority of the quests that we did,
the one short now comes with the life.
Oh lordy, I love ads, don't you guys? I'm gonna skip what he says here and probably close the video out. What he's gonna say is that the majority of the hunts that he was involved in were arena-styled hunts, and at that point, it's not really, to paraphrase heavily, it's not really hunting anymore. It's just a boss rush, because there's nothing, it's like, what are you hunting exactly? The monster's right there. There's nothing for you to, you don't have to chase it or nothing like that or anything of the sort. And I'm paraphrasing heavily on that one. Here's my point, though. Again, this goes back to the heaven sent skill and Amatsu and whatnot. For me, If I'm at the very, very, very end of the game's life cycle, there's no title updates, there's no further updates in general other than the one coming for console, which is to get them to where he is, right? If you are at the very end of it all, what more do you need? Do you still really need to go gather? Do you still really need to get more money? You're at the end of the game. There's a quest dedicated when the next so for the console people, there's a quest where right now called Roar of the Black Eclipse, I think it is, and you can go fight Gore Magala for bonus hunter rank, master rank points. Then, lo and behold, in the next title update, whenever 4, 5, and 6 come out, essentially, there's going to be another event quest where, guess what? There's a quest where you can hunt Shigaru Magala for even more bonus hunter rank and master rank points. Because at the end, you're done. You're already there. There's a quest to have a ton of money by getting a ton of eggs, and you can sell a bunch of that. Armor's fairs are kind of the annoying thing because you just have to do the side quest for them. I don't think there's a quest dedicated to them, which I would love for that to make a return from World and Iceborne. But other than that, you're at the end of the game. Do you really want to go back and train more buddies, train more Palicos? Do you really want to go back and use the Argosy to get the best stuff? You're already at the end. What else are you looking for? If you really are in that much of a need to get those things back, just make a new character. This is one of those just do things, and I hate that type of mentality. I don't hate just get good. There are some scenarios where you have to get good, but getting good doesn't imply just getting good. Getting good is an umbrella for the things that make you, or the things that are in the way of getting good. Like in fighting games, if you just say get good, one, that's going to blow, that pisses people off immensely, because what the hell does that mean? When people say get good, they're essentially meaning go to the training room, look up, do your character trial. Let's say Street Fighter 6, do your character trials, do the story mode, look online, look at videos of people. There's videos of people who teach you how to play either that specific character, or they show how to combo with the character. Watch tournaments of your favorite character and see how high level player does it, and learn to adapt from it. He even said it in this video at one point that he doesn't hate speedrunning, and speedrunning has taught him a lot of things. Me too. I learned a lot from speedrunning because I'm like, damn, I didn't know I could do that. Or damn, I didn't know that's something you could do. And I learned a lot of cool little things that were, that I wouldn't have known by just casually hunting or watching anybody hunt. Which most times I don't watch people play the games I play except for fighting games, because I use it for learning things rather than just watching for enjoyment. Sometimes it is though. Regardless, when you're at the end of the game, you can afford conveniences. Like if it became automatic now to just get herbs and potions and things like that because you're at the end of the game, what hurts you? Do you still really want to go out on your Palamute or just run around with wire bugs and collecting all those items? I don't think so. I'd argue you'd probably be bored of doing that. You'd be like, alright, I shouldn't have to keep doing this. Do you really want to have to sit there and mine for more ore? What else do you gotta build? Because also the thing is, this is why people say in low rank, you want to blast from low rank to high rank as quickly as possible. Make 1 or 2 best sets, because a master rank or a G rank is coming out, and that's when it really is like the big deal. Because low rank doesn't matter. Low rank matters in the sense of like that's how you get started. High rank is the middle ground of like, all right, you're almost there, but you can catch up and get some low rank stuff done and just make a decent set of gear for the time being. Then when it comes to master rank, that's like, okay, this is it. This is everything you could ask for. At the end of the game's life cycle, man, if there's some things that make life a little bit easier because you're already there, yeah, it does become a boss rush mode at that point. What else do you have to go forage and gather and whatnot? You're done. You're done with the game. It's like an Elden Ring. When you fight the final boss, let's say you fought every boss leading up. You've done all the dungeons. You fought all the bosses before. You're one of those completionist people. You've done some side quests here and there. When you're done with the game, what else do you have to do? For me, I restarted it just to try out different weapons, like make full different builds of different weapons and whatnot. That's what I did, and that was for my own enjoyment. But at the same time, I was done with the game. I played Katana because I don't know, I thought it was cool to play the Samurai. I made a build based on that with the Rivers of Blood and Moonveil, whatever, all those katanas. And I played the game, had my fun, and then I was it. There's nothing else to do. You know, there's not a need to have to go get more items or go to the traveling merchants or go in the dungeons and forage for the crystal or the shards to take back to the twins at the thing. Like, you're done. You are done with the game. What else do you need to do? If that breaks the immersion for you, I understand. But again, for me, that's not a personal issue. And Rurikhan's he's done with the game. He has finished essentially everything. Like he said, he's helping his viewers out, doing anomaly investigations, and that's awesome. I want to do that one day myself. Be involved in a community or build my own little community that's like, hey, we want to play with you. I'm like, dude, awesome. Be an honor. I love to play with people and have fun, meet new people, that sort of thing. I love those type of interactions. On the basis of, we're just doing arena quests, though, I would say, man, you're done. You already finished the game. You got nothing else to go for. So, I think it closes out with just saying, like, convenience is a problem that can overtake Monster Hunter, and it won't be, like, by the snap of your fingers. It won't be, like, the next game will get rid of all of it. And if it does, you can imagine a lot of pushback will be said and done for the game. But, with that being said, though, a lot of those changes aren't going to happen just because. Those changes are only going to happen because there was some time taken to consider whether or not it was necessary to keep in the game. But it won't happen. They're going to keep stun. They're going to keep sharpness. They're going to keep flinch free. They're going to keep those things because it's an inconvenience that they already are okay with. And at the end of the game, if you end up ignoring them because you're becoming optimal and you become the hunter, then what difference does it make? You're already at the end. Do you still need an inconvenience when you're at the final end of it all? Sure, for the sake of enjoyment and fun, but ultimately, no, not really. At least is how I would see it. And again, this is not fact that I'm speaking. This is my thought process of it all. So, let me see if you had any finishing statements. I gotta unmute. Oops.
They all took place in the actual... There's one very small exception, which is Chameleos. Whenever he goes invisible, you can't see where he is. But he usually goes invisible in the same area that you're at. I think he rarely goes invisible and runs away, if that even happens. So, even when he's invisible and you can't see him on the map, you know that he's close. So, it's a moot point.
I don't really care about paintballs personally, but...
So, even in regular maps, are you hunting? You always know where he is. Is that...
I'm gonna close it out right here. I will say, though, for this specifically, when it comes to hunting, even on regular maps, because there's 3 arenas in Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak. You have the Given Arena, Forlorn, and you have this right here, which is the Ruined Temples or something like that. Monster Hunter Rise is also made in an entirely different style when you compare it to World and Iceborne. World and Iceborne was definitely about exploration and getting comfortable with your surrounding environments and using what's near you. Sunbreak is more of just a boss rush, essentially. So maybe some of these complaints are biased on his experience with Sunbreak and thinking that it takes away a lot from what World and Iceborne had and Generations and whatnot. But to each their own. I totally understand that. I think the next one will probably go back more to an exploration style, because at the end of the game's life cycle, it ends up becoming a boss rush mode. You don't need to explore anymore once you've done the exploring in the beginning half of the game. But that'll be my closing statement on this. Do I think convenience is killing Monster Hunter? No, I don't think it has the ability to kill Monster Hunter, but is the ability to have too much of anything that is not a good thing? Absolutely. Too much of anything is not a good thing at all. So I think there can be some practice into it. I would say, like, for example, a quick statement on restocking, right? I would say instead of being able to restock fully, if we wanted to balance it out so you don't have it all freely available, restocking can only be based on the items you gather in the given area. So it'd be unique to each of the areas, and you restock it, you put it in a delivery thing, and then you just leave it there. So the next time you go hunt, you're like, oh man, I need potions. I can go back. Oh, hey, I forgot. I left 30 potions in here for me. I can take 10 and go back on the fight. But you only now have 20 left, and you have to force yourself to explore to go get those materials and bring it back. Like, I think that would be pretty cool as a way to balance things out. You can't just restock from whatever you had at the gathering hub, but you can restock based off of the surrounding area, and you can craft it at the camp. Something like that I think would be pretty dope if that's how they wanted to implement it. we got other videos coming out. I got more streams coming up, so I'm trying to get as active as possible because I'm gonna be leaving soon here on vacation for a trip, and then school's gonna be coming up, so it's a lot going on. But I do appreciate you guys if you watch all the way through, halfway through, or a quarter of the way through. I just wanted to get my feet wet in the conversation and see what people were concerned with. If you guys have any comments or concerns of your own, or Rurikhan sees this, hey, I love your content, man. I think it's dope. I do disagree with you on a few things, but not because I hate you or nothing like that. Simply more or less just I have a completely different mindset of how Monster Hunter works for me. But I do hope we do go. I do hope we slow things down a little bit. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you all enjoy and have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.